Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So for this video, I'm going to be discussing all of my favorite book covers of all time, at least from the ones that I could remember and all of the ones that I could find, on my shelves here. So I might be forgetting a couple here and there, but essentially, from what I could find, these are my all-time favorite book covers. And for the fans of my channel who love Stephen King, I'm going to mention a couple here, but in the past, I did a whole trilogy of videos talking about my favorite and least favorite Stephen King covers. So link for that down below if you want to go check that out. I will mention a couple of my favorites here, but essentially, these are all for my other authors that I have. And yeah, these are some of my all-time favorite book covers of all time. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Like I mentioned, I do have some Stephen King cover videos, but I will mention a couple of my favorites. One old school, one new school. Probably my favorite old school cover is Night Shift. Very trippy cover. It does correlate heavy with one of the short stories in Night Shift. And yeah, it's just very trippy, old school Stephen King cover. Always been one of my favorites. And then kind of transitioning into new school, one of my all-time favorite Stephen King covers. Not book. I don't really like this book that much, but the cover is spectacular. Fairy Tale. I love the color of the cover. I love the kind of the boy and the dog spiraling down here. And if you kind of zoom in and out, it kind of looks like an eyeball. So yeah, really cool cover. Love the font and the colors. So yeah, really cool cover, but the book, meh. And that's kind of another thing with these books. Like, I don't necessarily have to love all of these books, but out of all the books I own, these are my favorite covers. So let's first start with some of my favorite like horror covers. One of them would definitely be Wonderland by Zoe Stage. I kind of love like the red orange cover here, and you've got kind of trees that make it look like a face, which is very fitting for the book itself. You've even got, the spine, which is not the cover, but the spine is really cool too. But I've always really liked this cover, and it's very fitting for what we get in the novel. I also really like the cover of The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I like the deer, I like the antlers, and also just the feel of the book, which kind of an underrated aspect for covers. Like the way that the antlers feel on the book is also very interesting. They've got a little bit of texture to them. So this one has always been one of my favorite horror covers. We've also kind of got like a sci-fi horror satire. It's kind of a weird book, but great cover. Extreme Makeover by Dan Wells. I kind of love the pink and the white and the black. And you've got kind of like a DNA strand kind of turning into a human. This one has always been one of my favorite Dan Wells novels. Very standout, like pop pink. And I think it's really cool. Also, the back cover, kind of really hot pink there with kind of more black spirals. But yeah, I've always really adored this cover. This next book is fun because years and years ago, almost 10 years ago at this point, I specifically went to Second and Charles which is a bookstore, by the way, to pick out just a random book based solely on the cover, and I was going to read it. And I picked out this book based on the cover and loved it. And that would be Mr. Splitfoot. And again, I kind of love kind of the orange, red mixed with the green. And you've got the snake that kind of blends in and makes it look like a forest. And yeah, I've just always loved this cover. I picked this one out, and then not knowing anything about the book besides the cover, I really enjoyed it, gave it 5 stars. It's one that I really want to go back and reread, but as far as covers go, I had to include it just for that story alone, but also it's still, to this day, one of my all-time favorite book covers. Admittedly, this cover is not great looking, like it's very unpleasant, but I think it speaks well to what the story is about, and I think it evokes some interesting responses, and that would be The Grip of It by Jacques Jemp. Admittedly, like, it's not obviously the best cover of all time, but I think it speaks well to the kind of story that you get in here. One of my all-time favorite horror novels. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. But yeah, the cover is just very off-putting, but in a good way for me. Next up, we've got some fantasy novels to talk about, and one book that I really want to go back and reread, which I eventually will because me and Ian are definitely heavily thinking about doing a read-along for this series, and that would be Lord Brocktree by Brian Jacks. And this is one of the books in the Redwall series. Even as a kid, I always thought this was just such a badass cover. You've got a badger holding a sword, just looking very menacing. Like, it's just always been one of my favorite covers. Even till this day, like when I was a kid, I love this, but even to this day, it's just such a badass cover. And this next book, really, you can kind of pick any book in the series. This series has really fantastic covers, but I think for the first book really does it well for me, and that would be Age of Myth. I really just like the how do I put it? The scope of this book cover, because obviously you've got, people right there, but then you've got this giant ash tree in the background, and it just kind of like opens up this book to like epic proportions, epic possibilities. I also think it's a really cool looking tree and a really cool looking book cover, so I wanted to include it. Another one of my all-time favorite series is, Scott Lynch, Gentlemen Bastards. And I think for me personally, even though I love the first book, Lies of Locke Lamora, I think the second book takes the cake for best cover. Red Seas Under Red Skies. Such a menacing, dark, brooding cover, which I think makes sense for a bit of this book. Not the whole book in general, but this cover just is amazing. I love the red and the orange. I'm noticing a lot of red and orange in some of these covers. But yeah, this one just really works well for me, and it's one of my favorites. Next up, we got my second favorite series of all time. All of the covers for all these books are fantastic, but I think, me personally, I still have an affinity to Way of Kings. This book cover, the first time I saw it in the bookstore, I looked at this, had no idea who Brandon Sanderson was, had no idea what the Cosmere was, but looking at this cover, and obviously the chunk, it just blew me away, and I wanted to figure out what was going on in this picture. As you can see, you've got this guy, but you also got this guy like way over on the cliff, and just it kind of gives a grand picture of epic scale, which is really fitting for the world of Roshar. But yeah, I was very interested from the get-go and have been ever since. And speaking of red covers, we have The Bone Shard Daughter. I think this is one of the coolest fantasy covers, and obviously the bright red just really does it well for me. And then obviously you've got kind of the bone white here, obviously for Bone Shard Daughter, and I think it's just really well done. Not much to say, but I really do like the red, and it kind of wraps around to the back here. But yeah, really like this cover. My favorite author of all time is George R.R. Martin, but honestly, a lot of his covers aren't really the best. Like A Song of Ice and Fire, none of those really have like standout covers for me all the time. They're a little bit basic, but a lot of his older books, if you don't know, because he wrote a bunch of stuff in the 70s and 80s, a lot of his older stuff has really wild, out there covers, including Songs of Stars and Shadows. You've got Pretty Naked Lady and a flower and a giant ass spider. Really cool, trippy 70s sci-fi cover. This next one is always very entertaining for me, and that would be Tough Voyaging. You've got the character of Haviland Tuft, this random bald dude, and then you've got cats, and it's kind of the spaceship sci-fi setting, and you're kind of just wondering, like, what the deal with all of that is. But if you read it, it makes perfect sense. But it's just a really striking image, so it's always been one of my favorites. Also, the title is pretty cool as well. This next cover is very pleasant. It's very sparkly, and I like it a lot. And that would be After Dark by Haruki Murakami. Hopefully this is kind of picking up in the image here, but like you've definitely got some sparkles here. Very shiny book. Got a pretty lady on the cover. And yeah, one of my favorite Murakami books and one of my favorite covers of all time. I should have mentioned this with best fantasy book covers because it's a fantasy book and it's got one of the best covers of all time for a fantasy book. But I digress. I'm going to talk about Winds of Strife, which, man, this cover is awesome. It's by Yuji Gutman, self-pub author, and just really cool book cover. I really like the blend of black and blue and white. Just fantastic. I've always really liked this book cover. I'm still waiting for the sequel. Yuji Gutman, come on. But yeah, the cover for this is just outstanding. I really like this book cover. This next book and the last book that I have to talk about here, I'm sure there's others that if I keep looking, I'd probably find some more. Maybe I make a sequel to this if you guys like it. But this next book cover is probably my favorite book cover of all time. It's not my favorite book of all time, even though I did enjoy it for what it was. But this cover is just outstanding. And that would have to go with Cage of Souls by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Not just look at this. It's just brilliant. I love green. I know a lot of my book covers, have been red and blue, but like green, besides gray, which is not really conducive for a great book cover, green might be my favorite color. And this one, it's just very tropical, obviously, which makes sense for the story that we get here. I love just the title itself, Cage of Souls, is really cool. And the silver, just everything about this book cover just works really well. It's so detail oriented. It's just so pretty. So yeah, Cage of Souls, not my all-time favorite book, not even my favorite Tchaikovsky book, but certainly my all-time favorite book cover. It's just so nice looking. All right, so that's a quick little video talking about my all-time favorite book covers. And again, I'm probably missing a few, and if you guys want to see some more, comment down below if you want to see a sequel. But definitely, if I go back down here and retrieve it, my all-time favorite has got to be Cage of Souls. Like, it's just so pretty looking. Look at that. But then there's some other ones. Obviously, I've got fantasy covers, I've got horror covers, some sci-fi covers. And like I mentioned, I do have some videos talking about my Stephen King covers, good and bad. So check that down below if you want to go check that out. But yeah, these were some of my all-time favorite book covers of all time. Definitely let me know if you agree or disagree with my picks here, and comment down below what is your favorite book cover of all time. I want to chat about it with you down in the comments below, so let's go chat about it. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a quick thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, stay subscribed for more content. I try to post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, including now every third Thursday. I'm going to be doing an off-topic video. The next one that I'm going to be doing this month is going to be my top 10 drummers of all time, my personal favorite, so definitely check that out on this date. I'll try to post it here. Talk about my top 10 favorite drummers, which is very fitting for the Bookish Drummer. So yes, what else do I say? Link down for the Bookish Drummer Discord down below. Check that out for tons of buddy reads and read-alongs happening all the damn time. And I also have my Patreon link down below if you want to go support me there for as little as $1 a month. And Amazon wishlist if you'd like to buy me a book. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.